welcome back to my channel. I'm Ashley and you are watching The Rural Companion. In today's video, I'm going to share all of my details on how I plan an entire homeschool year. Before we jump into our homeschool planning how-to, let me share with you a little bit of how we got to here, or how we got to where we are today. So for the first 6 school years of my kids' education, so pretty much your elementary school years, we heavily followed Charlotte Mason, or the Charlotte Mason method, and we used Ambleside Online. Now this is a free resource and all you have to do is purchase the books. I loved it for just the quality of books that we were reading, the great resources that I probably never would have found myself. And it was just a great launching point for me to get started in learning how to homeschool my kids well. Now, if you're not familiar, Charlotte Mason is a very literature-based education and heavy on nature as well as Bible. So these were all of the things that we were already doing. It just actually put a name to the homeschool style that we had. Very laid back, relaxed, cozy. I like to call it hugu homeschooling, and a lot of times we were just snuggled on the couch reading great books, and then we would spend hours outside in the afternoon. When my kids got a little older, I felt a little bit more confident in my curriculum planning and decided to create my own homeschool plans. I completely made 2 school years for my kids from scratch, and you can check those out right over here. The first year was Oklahoma history along Route 66, and the next year was the ancients, or all of the ancient civilization curriculums. Now I did use a lot of books that were already put together, and then I kind of tweaked it, created my own plan as far as field trips, crafts, and things like that. Those 2 years were probably our most memorable and enjoyable homeschool years because we really got into the fun parts of homeschooling. My kids were also at a great age. They were in those middle school years where they still really enjoy all of the things that mom has. They're not so dependent on friends, and we were just able to learn a lot and have fun together. The next school year, so this was my son's 8th grade and my daughter's 9th grade school years, I had separated their education. Now up to this point, everything we did was together except for math. So in 8th and 9th grade, I separated them because I wanted them to have a completely tailored to each student high school experience. I also transitioned more so to a classical education approach. Again, very heavy on books, but it is a little meatier of a curriculum. It's not quite as that gentle feast as Charlotte Mason method kind of gives you. So we switched to using more of Memoria Press's educational materials, great resources. We did Latin and classics and just some great materials as well. For the following school year, so both of my kids were in high school at this point, 9th and 10th grades, we did enroll them in a local private Christian school. We were under the impression that this was a college prep style school, that the curriculum would be very rigorous and intense for both of them. Unfortunately, it wasn't, and the teachers were very complacent in their teaching. A lot of well, okay, so my kids call it their year off, and we'll just leave it at that. It was not what we were expecting, and it did not challenge my kids at all. So this year we are going into 10th grade for my son and 11th grade for my daughter. They will be doing the morning core subjects at home with me, And then in the afternoons, they will be going to a local vo-tech school. One of my kids will be doing a criminal justice program, and the other kid of mine will be doing a pre-engineering program. Okay, so let's jump into how to plan a school year. The very first thing I do is start with our subject list. Now, this again, I pulled from both our Oklahoma graduation requirements for high school, and I combined that with the courses that my kids are going to be taking at the vo-tech school. Obviously, they only need a certain number of classes each year, and we were able to combine and divide and all of that. So both of my kids will be doing English and history at home, and my son will be doing the rest of his credits at the vo-tech school, and my daughter will also be doing a psychology and math credit at home. Once we plan out the subject list, then I go through and decide on what books to purchase, and then I purchase them. Now, for this year, I was able to get a lot of input from my students on which literature books they would prefer. Now, I gave them some parameters. They needed a classic book, they needed a Shakespeare book, and then they needed just kind of a fun wild card, maybe biography style book, and they were able to narrow down some options. We worked together and picked those books. Once I had the book list, then I scoured Rainbow Resource and Thrift Books. Those are my two favorite places to purchase homeschool materials. Once I have purchased the materials, around that time frame, then I always print out a calendar. Now, I love this calendar from worksheetworks.com. I have actually printed this same calendar maybe for the past, I'm not even sure, 8 to 10 years. I love this calendar. It is so simple. It has the school months on either side and then a space in the middle for me to jot down all of the things that I like to jot down. Then I start working on my spreadsheets. So I normally, in years past, I would make a yearly spreadsheet. This year I actually just went to weekly spreadsheets for each of my kids. I wrote down their subjects on one side and then the days of the week on the top side. And then I always make sure I include what week it is so that we can jot that down. Now, once I am done printing these, then I go through and I fill in each and every square according to the books that we are using. I go page by page to fill in what will happen on each day. Okay, let's jump into the fun stuff, the books that I bought for this upcoming school year. The first subject we'll start with is English. Now, I didn't actually spend any money on either of these, but we have the Wordly Wise sets that I got off of Quizlet.com. Such a great resource for studying, learning how to just kind of prepare for tests and quizzes, which are sadly or apparently a part of high school in preparation for college. So something that we didn't do too much when my kids were in the lower grades is we did not do weekly tests and quizzes. And over the past year or so being in school, the kids did so many tests and quizzes. Actually, when I was teaching, that's what I felt like I did as part of my Becca curriculum, was probably 3 or 4 times a week. Quiz, test, quiz, test. So for this Wordly Wise, they are going to copy the words and definitions several times a week and then do one activity on Quizlet each day. So they have flashcards, they have little games, things like that. This is a simple way to continue to work on vocabulary building. This is a lifelong skill. You don't stop learning new vocabulary words just because you finish high school or college. We're doing a vocabulary in lieu of spelling, as I just don't think a spelling test is as necessary in today's society because we have all of the spell checks and autocorrects and things like that. I think vocabulary is way more useful. So each of my kids will be working on their grade level vocabulary list, and then they will each have 3 books to read throughout the school year. For the literature part of their English curriculum. They have 3 categories of books that they will be reading over the course of the school year. There is a classic book, a Shakespeare book, as well as a biography that they were able to pick. For both the classic and the Shakespeare, I gave them a couple parameters and then ultimately picked which book I thought was best for them. For the literature, they will be reading the book and then completing the student guide that comes from Memoria Press. Inside the student guide, there is, so let's look for chapter 5. There is words to be defined, then they read, then they do the comprehension questions, then the logic section. This probably will be, it says that they can be either in written or verbal form, so we will probably most likely just discuss these questions. Now, every several weeks, so for this one, chapter 5 didn't have it, but chapter 6 has it, there is a rhetoric or an expression option for writing an essay. So my students will be doing this part. We will walk through and they kind of give you a step-by-step of how they're wanting you to write essentially a summarizing paragraph for the past several chapters. So it gives you ways to complete that. And then in the back of the teacher guide, they have a template for that same essay. So you would fill this in, it's essentially an outline. You would fill this in and then take that and turn it into an essay. So the teacher guide also has tests and answers. For this first book, for my 10th grader, he will be doing just the essays. For the Shakespeare set, he will just be doing the tests that they have provided. For my 11th grader, she is going to be doing both, so the essay and the test. I feel like grade-wise, that is sufficient for both of them, as well as where they are in their literature skills anyway. So the way that this will work is they will read the book, complete the section, and then we will talk about it. So we've got Sherlock Holmes, The Hound of Baskervilles for the classic 10th grade book. We have Henry IV Part 1 for, again, 10th grade Shakespeare book. And then my 10th grader is biography, Eddie Van Halen. He is probably the top, one of my son's favorite people. My son does play guitar. He is very good at it, by the way. So he will be reading through this. What I plan on doing at the end of the biography book is having them write an essay. It will probably be a compare and contrast essay where they compare the life of their person with themselves or possibly another person. I haven't totally figured that one out. This will happen at the end of the school year, so we have some time to work through that. For my 11th grade literature, we will have Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. We have, again, the book, the student guide, and the teacher guide. Again, for this one, I will be having her read, do the essays every couple lessons, so it's not every week that they have to write an essay. There will be an essay, and then the tests and quizzes she will also do. So again, here is the layout. I like this one because it is a spiral. There was not an option. This is just how it came, and I wish that we would have been able to get all of them a spiral. I just feel like it is really handy. Now, the cool thing about each of these student guides is they are reusable, so I'm not sure that my son will read this book. However, because they are not writing in them, they're actually writing in a notebook, this can be used for multiple students from year to year. Shakespeare for 11th, my 11th grader will be A Midsummer Night's Dream. She has actually loved this since she was a little girl. We would get the picture book version from the library probably every couple weeks. She would come home with that book. The final book for my 11th grader will be Brain on Fire. This is a book about a woman who goes through a severe mental health crisis. My daughter is fascinated by brains, and so I thought this would just be a really cool read for her. Now, again, her essay is probably going to be just maybe a biography type, or just describing what is going on. We will go through and figure out exactly what type of essay they are going to write. Again, this will not happen until closer to the end of the year. For both of my students, they will be working out of this history book. This is called Exploring World History. This is from Ray Knotgrass, or the Knotgrass, I think, publication company or something like that. Knotgrass Company. That's what it is. This is actually a 2-part book. However, I'm going to only have my students work slowly through part 1 and then save the part 2 for my son's 11th grade school year, as that covers the Renaissance to modern times. And my daughter has already done that in her 9th grade school year. So I don't feel like she needs to do another year of Renaissance history. In addition to this, it does have a literature option, which we are not going to be following, and they just have a great list of books to read. We're not going to be doing that, but we will be following the Bible portion. And then they also have a little bit of grammar that they mention. So each section is set up. You've got your lesson. You go through several pages of the lesson. My students will be doing a verbal narration, like we did from our Charlotte Mason days. So that is simply just retelling everything that happened in the section. And then we will be discussing the Bible study question. For example, this one says, how do you think the earliest people knew what was right and wrong? What was safe to eat and what was poisonous, and other vital information. So this one will just be a discussion. Possibly it will be with the student and me, or with all 3 of us. I haven't totally figured that out. It just depends on time. And then the grammar point. So for each day they have a little discussion. This one is on pronouns. So for example, a pronoun takes the place of a noun or a list of nouns. So we will go over that. If they have questions, we will discuss it. They do give a little example, and I will make sure that they fully understand it. I love this setup because, well, last year they were doing Abeka English, and Abeka is so heavy on grammar and diagramming, and honestly, unless you're going into becoming an English teacher, you will never need that much grammar. Okay, so in addition to this, my daughter will be reading through the history of Africa, East Asia, and ancient America. Now this one actually goes from early time period all the way to pretty modern, so she will not be reading this whole book, but she just loves the history of people, specifically why they are the way that they are. So how better to understand than by going back and discovering about them. So this is history. Again, my 10th grader will just be doing English and history at home, and the rest of his classes will be taken at the Bow Tech School. My daughter will be doing English, history, psychology, which we're counting as a science, and math, which she will be doing a stewardship math. So her psychology book, and she already took the book and started reading through it, but this is the teacher guide. It's Psychology, a Christian Perspective for high schoolers. So this one has kind of all of the details as to the why behind each chapter or each section in each chapter, as well as some quizzes and tests, and then it gives some additional resources that you can look up. So what I plan for this one is she is going to read through the section, and then we are going to find some really cool maybe videos or extra things to look up on the internet to just dive deeper. She is passionate about psychology, and I'm excited to go through this with her. So finally, my 11th grader will be completing the stewardship math from Matthew C. She has already done Algebra 1 and Geometry, and technically this would be her year to do Algebra 2. However, in the state of Oklahoma, you only need 3 math credits, and only one of them has to be Algebra 1. Because she is not going into a math-heavy career path, we decided that stewardship was going to be a better option for her. So this one has videos that you watch, then you have the instruction manual that you can read through, and then this is the Bible study portion, and then they have a student workbook that you go through. And again, this is just going to be kind of, well, they call it a biblical approach to personal finance. This is designed to be that additional math credit for a student who maybe just doesn't love math. Now, my son will be doing Algebra 2, he will be doing pre-calculus and some other crazy math classes while he's at the tech school. I am so glad that he will be getting those opportunities, but that it does not need to come from me because I could not help him with that. Okay, so that is our school year wrapped up. In a nutshell, for Bible, again, we will be going through the history book as well as this biblical studies book for the stewardship, as well as the kids are old enough to be able to do their own Bible quiet time with the Lord. We will be encouraging that, but this is not something that will be on our schedule, our homeschool schedule any longer. Okay, I think that's it. If you have any questions, I would love to hear from you in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and make sure you hit subscribe so that you see each of the videos that I put out every couple weeks on homemaking, homeschooling, homesteading, and just being here at home where the Lord has brought me. Thank you again for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.